Hey there, this is Drew from Purdue VFX, and today we're going to be doing a sky replace using a nighttime scene. We're going to track it, replace the sky, and then color correct our scene to try to match the change from day to night. So let's jump into After Effects and get going. Let's start by making a new composition using our footage that we want to replace the sky with. And you can see in our footage we've got a really blown out high exposure sky, some high detail on the right side of trees, some motion that we're going to have to track through. And then if we want to use this night sky background, we're going to want to first of all scale it down from a really high resolution image. But we're going to want to color correct our footage so that we can start to get that night, dark, eerie look if we're using a night sky. So the first thing I'm going to do is duplicate this sky layer twice. So we have 3 of the same footage, and the approach that we're going to take to this is you could key this out by using a keyer, but you'll get computer intensive and waste a lot of time when you can use a Luma matte. So what we're going to do is take that first footage and use an effect that's built into After Effects known as Colorama. And what this effect does, which you'll see here shortly, it takes the color spectrum and applies it to everything. So you can see that most of our white has gone to red. And we could start out with this right here, but because we want to use it as a Luma matte, which means using luminance, so white to black, we're going to actually change the output cycle of the Colorama to ramp gray. So it's identical to going to black and white, but because we do it through this plugin, we can add in extra color marks where you can control based on the range how much of it you want to be cut out. So similar to clipping black and clipping white in Keylight or in any normal keyer, you can manipulate the range this way with this built-in plugin to After Effects. So I'm going to create another dot here for the white because up here in the sky we've got some pixelated area from the clouds, as well as we've got some weird pixelation going on down here with the trees, which is something we'll have to take quite a look at the detail at later so that we can fully get that out of the shot. So I'm going to bring that white up quite a bit so we can start to see that tree area starts to really get played with, but we don't want to cut into it. We just want to try to get rid of some of that soft edge. So right around that area, and we might even bring that black range down a little bit just to try to bring in some more of that edge softness up there. So now that we've used this to create a matte, we can go down here into our layers and take that middle layer and we'll just say Luma inverted matte. So that'll take that first layer and do a Luma matte. And what this means is if I disable these back 2 layers, if you don't see this checkerboard, you can toggle that right here at the transparency button. But now you see that anything that was in that range of white that we had keyed out essentially is now transparent. So the area around the trees, which has some haze still a little bit that we'll get rid of later, but all of the area of the sky is taken out. So now with our actual sky that we want to use in the background, you can really start to see that there's some area here on the edges that we want to get rid of, as well as some haze around this grass area over here that we can easily eliminate when we take it away from the other side. But we run into a major problem when we do this. We don't have any tracking done yet. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick. So we'll just select our footage. That's the middle layer there. We'll go over to our tracker, which if you don't have this over here already, you can go ahead and click Window and then go down to Tracker so you can enable it. And we're going to select Track Motion. We don't want to do track camera because it's not a 3D scene that we're going to want to bring elements in. So we're just going to track the position and the rotation. So we get these 2 tracking points here. And it's best to track things that are furthest back in your scene but still have high contrast. So I'm going to choose this little guy that's pretty far back, and I'm actually going to widen up his range just a little bit just because I know that this goes quite a bit side to side. And then for the other one in the background, I'll probably do this nub right here because it seems to be a pretty good contrast to the sky. So with those selected, and we're on frame 1, we're going to go ahead and hit track forward. Alright, so now that we have this tracking data that's currently in the scene where you can see keyframe for keyframe where the tracks are moving, let's go ahead and create a null object. And that's where we're going to store the positioning data of this track. So this null, I'm just going to place it on top. And I'm going to go ahead and edit the target of my tracker to that null object with that null selected as my target and the position rotation are tracked. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply and take the X and Y data and apply it to that null. So if we just collapse this back up, you can see that as we scrub through, that null object is pretty well tracked onto our background. So now all we have to do is take our background footage that we want to use as our sky and drag that pick whip and parent it to our null. And now you'll see that comes up right here, and then anytime that we move this footage forward, it'll always follow that track. So now we've got our sky fully replaced, but we still want to get rid of some of this haze. So with the track done and most of the Luma done, I'm going to go ahead and pre-compose these two layers. And what that means is pre-composing these layers will allow you to edit them as a single layer. So I'm just going to name that comp. Now you can see that we have that one layer pre-comped, and if we still want to edit those individual things, you can go inside it and still edit that, which in your project window you can see there's a new comp over here compared to our main comp that we had that was just named the same as the footage. So now with this main comp, I'm going to do two different techniques for trying to pull out some of this ridiculous white haze that's going on. The first one I'm going to do is just go up to Effect, go to Matte, and go to Matte Choker. And right off the bat, you can see a huge difference there. So I'm just going to take this geometry softness down to 0 so you can really see what we're doing here. But this choker is a built-in effect to After Effects, just like Colorama, where you can edit the chokes and level of softness for your color gradient. So if we start to pull up that softness a little bit, you really start to see how we immediately lost that white boundary that was around them. And so this is a little bit high. If we do that, and then we can also go back and play with our initial colorama to try to get rid of any extra that's going on. So what I'm going to do is just zoom in a bit, go over here. I'm probably going to bring out this black range a little bit and play with this white range just a little bit more. So we want to keep most of that tree in. We're just going to go to about here or so. Go back up to our main layer where we have our main comp. And now we pretty much have a decent Luma key. We can even just do this a little bit more. Really start to get into that detail. We lose a lot of detail here on the edges, but that also has to play in with the fact that our clip isn't a very high resolution. So it's all about finding that sweet spot between your ranges. So I'm actually just going to bring this down just a little bit so we can keep some of that detail in. And then same thing with our Luma key. I'm going to bring that up just a little bit. See what that looks like in our final composite. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. And so now that our Luma's done, it's tracked to the scene, you've done a basic sky replace that is fully ready to go, but it doesn't look very realistic. So what I'm going to do is go over to our effects and presets and just do a little bit of color correction. So I'm going to go ahead and type in curves, and I'm going to drop that onto our sky footage. And just right off the bat, I'm going to bring down some of the darks. We're going to go ahead and bring that onto our footage, which is our comp here of the two layers. And we're just going to bring down some of the lows so we start to get a little darkness. We can keep our highlights up quite a bit, but we're definitely going to want to throw in some low range and then go ahead and go into a brightness and contrast. Throw that onto our comp as well. Just bring that down just a little bit. And then a little bit of tweaking here and there. Pull up our contrast quite a bit so our background really starts to blow out. Just really don't want those mountains showing any effect of dark to light if you're at night. So just go ahead and do that a little bit. Bring our brightness down just a tad bit more. And now we've started to get this scene going on, and I'm actually just going to pull down the reds a little bit, because at nighttime you get a lot cooler, not so much sun interaction. Maybe bring up the blues just a little bit, and then we'll tug on the greens just a little bit. So right there, right off the bat, we get a decent key. With a high resolution clip, you don't have to worry so much about these high details because you get to keep a lot of that in your pixel data. But that for every project, it'll go with tweaking your edges of your mattes. It'll be the same thing in Keylight, editing your clip black and clip white to try to keep your detail in here. Yeah, there we go. I'm just going to go ahead and hit RAM preview. And there's our final shot.